Good morning, Magic Monkeys. How are you doing today? The last couple days have been pretty nice weather-wise. I don't know, it's a little rainy today, but we'll see. Today is Wednesday, March 10th, and this is In Case You Missed American History. If you're watching this, that means you couldn't make it to class today, and that is okay. I hope you're well. Hope those around you are well. Hope you got outside yesterday for a few minutes at least and enjoyed some of the beautiful weather. You know, in Wisconsin, that could be a fake out. We could have a foot of snow next week for all we know. I hope it's not. I'm ready to be done. I'm ready to go outside and do things. Yeah, definitely. So I'm going to run you guys through everything we did today and just do some quick reminders and things like that. First, I want to start with a reminder that you guys got to get your work in. Okay. You had the World War I work due Monday by midnight, or World War II work, due Monday by midnight. And then you had all day yesterday to get caught up if you were behind in anything. And I'm missing a lot of work, guys. We have 2.5 weeks left in the quarter. That's it. And some of you guys are trending in the wrong direction. So don't think just because you've got a decent grade right now that you can just do nothing the rest of the quarter. That's not the way it works. Grades and standards-based grading are based on recent trends and how you're finishing. It's more about how you finish than how you start. And if you're finishing with a bunch of zeros, that's not going to reflect well on how you're doing in things. One other quick reminder, I posted this a couple times. If you go down to Asynchronous Learning Day 3 for 3.9 or Asynchronous Learning Day 2, it's in there in both places. But if you're watching this, you didn't get to school today, so you might not know this. The schedule changed today. If you click on this, you can see the whole thing. Mine's kind of blocked up with different things. But we're up to 81-minute classes now for the rest of the quarter. It's going to seem like a long time at first, but it's going to be the normal deal next year, or maybe 80. I can't remember exactly what it's going to be. We'll figure that out when we get there. But you've got your nutrition break and things like that. And then the copy that I shared with you guys has who's at lunch at certain times. So kind of make sure you take a look at that and you'll be good. Okay. Yeah. So that's in there if you guys need it. Yeah. Okay. Now on to some things for today. Okay. We're going to start looking at civil rights and a unit on civil rights. And we're going to spend this week on this and Monday's work from home day on this as well. So we've got, like I said, 2.5 weeks left, and kind of the plan is to spend this week on civil rights, next week on the Cold War, and then the last week on the kind of the modern era. You are getting an assignment today that's going to be due next Monday. It's going to actually be the last big assignment that I give you guys. Your assignments for the Cold War and the modern age are not going to be as huge or as large. They'll definitely be things that you can handle, okay? But I think this is a really important unit. It's going to kind of wrap up some things that we've been doing all year, because whether you realize it or not, we kind of have been talking about different groups' civil rights throughout the entire year. We've talked about Black Americans a lot. We talked about Latino people in a lot of units. We've talked about women in a lot of units. We talked about all kinds of different kinds of people, and Native Americans, for instance, in the one unit. And we're going to kind of not wrap it up, because people will still come up in the Cold War and the modern era, but we're going to look at this time in the 50s, 60s, and even into today, where individual groups of people are battling to get the things that they need, okay, the equality that they need. And so these movements become a really big deal in like the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And it's not that they're not as big a deal. It's just that like they really gained momentum during that time period. Okay, so what are civil rights? Okay, first of all, when you're in a history class and you think civil rights, you probably think like Martin Luther King Jr., you probably think Rosa Parks. As a matter of fact, if you Google civil rights movement, you're going to come up with the Black American civil rights movement. But civil rights are for everybody, okay? Civil rights are the basic rights and freedoms that you're supposed to be guaranteed as, in our case, as an American, the things that you're supposed to have a protection to be able to do, okay? Now, one of the really important things that I have to remind you here before we get into the next slide, we're actually going to kind of define this and go through it, because this is something we use as a talking thing in class, is that yes, you have civil rights. Yes, you have liberty. You have the ability to do things. You have a lot of rights and freedoms. but you don't have the rights and freedoms to take away other people's rights and freedoms. And that's really important to note. You can't do just anything for your own good if it's going to harm somebody else, or if I'm getting something that other people don't have the opportunity to fairly get under the law. Okay. And so this first picture that I chose as a background is obviously Martin Luther King Jr. This is in Washington, D.C., right around the I Have a Dream speech. I'm sure you guys have probably heard that. If not, I highly recommend taking a listen to parts of that. It's a very inspiring speech. There's a lot more to it than just the little snippet that you've probably heard. Okay. But civil rights really are a lot of things. First of all, they're an essential part of democracy. I don't know that people would want to be involved in a democracy if these things weren't guaranteed for them. They also play a central role in you being able to participate in the government, to be able to participate in your local community, and for you to be protected to do the things that you're supposed to be able to do in the world, in the places that we live. Now, obviously, there are civil rights for people all over the world, and a lot of those are protected. In the United States, we place a heavy emphasis on individual civil rights. Being a democracy, being a place where every person is supposed to have their say, civil rights are a very important part of what we view as our Americanness. Okay. Basically, by definition, civil rights guarantee equal social opportunity to people and protection under the law. And so it's kind of this idea that when it comes to opportunity and when it comes to protection, we're all the same. All right. Now I know you're thinking, man, but if I had $1 billion, but if I was this color, or if I was a guy, yeah, see, that's the problem. Okay. And so when we talk about civil rights ideally are that everybody has the same opportunity. Now, yeah, money opens more doors, but we all have the opportunity to get that money. We're all looked at the same way under the law, and that's regardless of race, religion, sex, gender, sexuality, any basic trait that makes you. Okay. The fact that you guys are 15, you have certain civil rights that actually I don't have, but I also have more civil rights than you do. Is that fair? Okay. Is the color of my skin a guarantee of better than someone who would have a different colored skin? Is the fact that I am a white male, does that give me more? And the idea of civil rights is this idea, one of the key words in this definition is equal. So some examples of some civil rights, and I couldn't possibly write them all. So I picked out a list of things that I think are important to a lot of people. Okay. Like the right to vote. Okay. Being able to show up at your poll and cast your vote for president or governor or local school board member, and being able to do so equally in a manner that is the same for everybody, regardless of, again, race, sex, religion, gender, sexuality, things like that. In America, we're supposed to have the right to a fair trial, a jury by our peers, if that's appropriate for the case. But we're supposed to be looked at the same under the eyes of the law. We're all supposed to have access to a public education, and that education should be of a relatively equal quality no matter where you go to school. So a school like Marshall, and let's be honest, Marshall is a middle lower class town. I live here too, so I can say that. We should have the same access to a good public education that kids in a rich suburb of a city should have. Okay. And so we should all be allowed to have that same right to learn to read, write, speak, and things like that. We should have the same opportunity to access government services, the things that our government does for us, the programs that they offer, the aid that they offer, the opportunities like college loans and things like that come from our government. Something else is we should have equal protection under the law. We shouldn't be looked at differently because of skin color. We shouldn't be treated differently because of skin color or sexuality or gender or physical capabilities. Okay. And also the government protects in your civil rights having fair employment practices, that we all have an equal opportunity to apply for jobs, that we're all viewed the same when we walk into a job interview. Now, our skills and our abilities may set us apart in that interview, but everybody should have the right to apply, and if they're qualified, get an interview. Some other things that might fall under here is access to housing. There's a lot of things that go under here. Obviously, I chose a women's liberation movement picture or women's rights movement. And actually, this is the Latino rights movement. This picture was taken in Milwaukee, actually. My Spanish is not good. I apologize, but I think it was like a day without Latinos, which was like a day of peaceful protest and things like that, which I thought was really interesting that happened a couple of years ago. But our issue is, and if you've been paying attention this year, you've probably gathered that different groups of people in our country have had to struggle to get those basic rights, have had to struggle to get the equality, the equal look under the law, the fair trial, the access to government things, the access to good housing, the right to vote, for instance. That hasn't been easy, okay? And I just wanted to remind you, this is more than just like a quick unit. We've been talking about this all year. I hope you talked about it last year with Mr. Place or whatever history teacher you may have had last year, because it's not just I have a dream and Rosa Parks didn't give up her seat on the bus and Malcolm X and Rodney King and George, it's not just Black Lives Matter. There's a lot more to it than that. There's a lot more to it than even what we see in the news. And so it's important to know that the fight continues every day for big groups of people. On this slide, we've got the Native American or the American Indian movement. We've got the Asian American Civil Rights Movement. We actually have Americans with Disability Rights Movement, and then the LGBTQ plus group fighting for rights. And so we're gonna kind of do this a little bit differently in that what I'm going to do is I'm going to have you do a project. And the handout for the project is loaded in Classroom. I'll make sure I'm going to pin it to the top. And it's about civil rights movements in the United States. And basically, I'm gonna read you through this thing. It says, in order to complete our unit on the American civil rights movements of the last 60 to 70 years, so we're kind of looking at a broad scope of years here, we're going to complete a project that pulls together some of the skills that we've worked on this year. Writing is going to be a big one, doing research, being able to analyze, think our way through material. Whether you realize it or not, one of the really big things I've emphasized with you guys is writing, okay? You may not always look at the feedback I'm giving you guys on things, but I am constantly commenting about capitalization and periods and full sentences and run-on sentences and not starting your answers with pronouns. You guys have driven me nuts on that one, okay? And so this is going to be an opportunity for you to show me all those things that you've improved on this year. This should be something that we can look back on, like your first piece of work that you did for me back in September, or if you were new with me, again, beginning of November. And we should be able to look at this and go, wow, look how much you've improved. So you're going to have some choices in this project and how to complete things. But the project itself is going to be finished and shared with me by Monday, March 15th at midnight. That gives you a little less than a week to do this. We're going to have a ton of class time to work on this, though, so kind of bear with me, okay? This is going to be a major grade, okay? Like I said, the last two assignments, whenever you guys do the last 2 weeks worth of stuff, is going to be much smaller. I really want you guys to finish strong in all your classes, so I'm going to take a little pressure off you in here and make your assignments on the Cold War and the modern era much briefer. And make sure that you guys are able to be successful. So here's what you guys need to do. There's 3 steps. All right, step 1 is you have to choose one of the groups of people that you're going to work with. And we're going to look at people that during the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and 2000s have been fighting for more or better civil rights, or more of an equal look under the government and under the law. And so your choices are Black Americans, Latino, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, Asian Americans, women, the LGBTQ plus community, and Americans with disabilities. Those are all groups. I did a ton of research on this project to make sure that everybody would have a shot no matter what you guys picked. And every one of those has a ton of information accessible to you. All right, so step 1, pick a group. All right, step 2, decide how you want to show me what you've learned about that group or what you're learning about that group. And you've got some options. I put 3 main options, and then I offered you kind of a little bit of wiggle room. The first option is a written essay. Okay, now it may be more than 5 paragraphs if you look at what I'm asking you guys to do. But remember, if you're writing an essay, every essay starts with an intro paragraph and ends with a conclusion paragraph, and then you want to hit all your major topics in paragraphs in between. I don't think this is going to be a 1 paragraph essay if you want to do well. It's going to be at least 5, 6, 7 paragraphs. Okay, you're capable of that. You guys have all really shown me great leaps in your writing side. I think you can do that. The second thing you want to do, second option you have is to make a Google presentation. Now, again, when you're making a Google presentation, you want to have the visuals and you want to have your words, and you want to have I don't know, let's say 25 words or less on each slide. But in order to show me all the extra things that you would have talked about, I'm going to have you put the extra information in the speaker notes down below. I think you guys know where those are on a Google presentation. Another option is that you could do a speech. Now, if you do a speech, you could have a simple Google presentation to guide you, and you could record your voice like a screencast, or you could set up your phone or your computer and you could talk your way through these things. Okay. Now, if you do a speech and you just talk, if you just stood and talked like I'm talking right now about all the different topics, you are going to want to share a works cited page with me. Okay. That shows me all the research that you did. Lastly, there's a million other ways that you could show me what you learned. And so if there's some other way, you're like, I don't want to do a beep, beep. I don't want to do an essay. I don't want to do a presentation. I don't want to speech. I want to do this instead. Run it by me first. Just don't go rogue on me and start doing X thing and then have me go, well, I don't really think that's a good way to do this. So make sure and check that with me if you want to go some other route. Okay. And there's a lot of routes you could go. Now, what do you need to learn? What do you need to find out? First of all, we're going to research and include the following ideas. Why is the movement needed? What was it about this group of people that was not being given, acknowledged? What was not equal? Okay, so how did the movement start? What were some of the problems that your group was facing that made it start? What were some of the major events involved in the movement? We're looking like 1950 to present. It's up to you how many you want to cover, but I would say at least do 2 or 3. Okay. And then tell me what happened in each major event. Just don't have a list of events in a Google presentation. You're going to have to put some things in the speaker notes that tell me what these things are if you're doing a presentation. Who were 2 or 3 of the major figures or major people of the time period from the 1950s to present that were involved? Tell me a little bit about them and what they did. What makes them a big deal? Okay. What gains have been made? What changes have been made since the movement started? And what things are still problems in the world that we live in today? What's still a fight? What's still a battle? What's still a thing that this group of people is fighting for? And then last but not least, no matter what you do, you need to have a works cited or bibliography that you're going to do in MLA format. Okay. Now, I'm asking a lot, but I'm also going to give you a lot of time. Over the course of the next couple classes, I'm going to give you like a little mini unit. Tomorrow, we're going to talk about a kid named Emmett Till. On Friday, we're going to talk about the women's lib movement. We're going to talk about Gloria Steinem. But you're going to get at least an hour every day of just straight work time. Okay. Not to mention all as much time as you need on Monday. And then honestly, that should be enough time to get a lot of this done. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I'm here to help, and I'm looking forward to seeing the great work that you guys do. I'll see you later. Bye-bye.